Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees from Sri Jagannath Puri Dham. It's our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is session number 52 in our series of talks that we're calling Meeting in KURUKSHETRA. It's a very long, strange trail of tears. And this is the fifth session of the Bhramara-gita, or the talks between Srimati Radharani and the bumblebee, which is also connected with Uddhava Sandesh and Uddhava's arrival in Vrindavan. So if you have any comments or reflections, questions, please write them in. We'd like to see who's taking part. We'll go ahead and say a few prayers now. Gora Graganya Gana Gotra Goloruharam Goranga Gudatama Gopyada Kolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Shaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Vedi Ramayane Shaiva Purane Bhadate Tata Adhavante Chamadye Cha Hari Sarvatra Giyate Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yad Kripa Tamaham Vande Shigurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam. Paramananda he Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vandavela Parikori Be Chakadola Se Chakadolanka Paraye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees from Sri Jagannath Puri Dham. So, we're continuing our discussion of the Bhramara-gita and the very esoteric connections between this chapter of the Bhagavatam and the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'd like to look back a little bit for review, and this would be a very similar review that we gave to our last class, because this topic is a very, very deep, very, very subtle subject matter, and I think it won't hurt to go over it several times for us to try to understand it. So we've been reading from the 47th chapter, the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, which according to many Vaishnavas is the most important chapter in the Bhagavatam. We spoke about that in our last session. That's a very startling thing for some people to hear. You may say, well, how can you say that? The first canto of chapter 1 or chapter 2 is so important, or Krishna's appearance in the 10th canto, or the Rasa Panchadhyaya, the 5 chapters speaking about the Ras Leela. Those are considered to be the heart of the Bhagavatam. How can you say this 47th chapter is the most important? For Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we say this because, as we're going to further explore in the session today, this chapter indicates Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it precedes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it's the cause of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in many ways. So we were reading from the 4th verse of this 47th chapter, which describes the gopis speaking to Uddhava, and the gopis tell Uddhava, Pitror Bhavan Priya Chikirshaya, that the real reason why Krishna sent you was to give pleasure to his parents. It's not really for us. We don't see anyone else in Braj who's worthy of remembrance. In other words, if Krishna is disregarded, even his parents, Yashoda and Nanda, then how is it possible for persons like us to have a place in his memory at all? And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his Artha Darshani commentary, he explains this verse in the following words. He says, Mune krita sannyasa syapi dustyaja. The word mune in the verse, where in the gopis are describing it, is very difficult even for munis to give up their attachment to family life. Vishwanath explains that what the gopis are meaning to say is this: Mune krita sannyasa syapi dustyaja. That even munis who take sannyas find it hard to give up the relationship with their father and mother. In other words, they're saying that just see, Krishna's left, he's taken sannyas, he's given up Braj. And he's very easily given up his relationship with the countless wives of others whom he enjoyed. There's no mention of that even, the gopis are speaking. They're saying that it's very difficult for Krishna to give up attachment to his parents. So we commented on this, that this has a very deep meaning in Gaura Leela, that to repay his debt to the gopis and to show that he, Krishna, was more attached to him than even than his mother, Yashoda, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, or Krishna came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and took sannyas and left his mother to run to Radha in Puri, which Lochandas Thakur calls his Adbhuta Vairagya. And we heard some things from Nandakishore Goswami, in his book Vrindavan Lilamrita, how the gopis, how he's fluffing out the meaning of what the gopis are saying, that actually the real reason the gopis say Gopa jati pitta mataya nahi prayojan. He doesn't need a father and mother who belong to the Gopa caste, the cowherd caste. The real reason he's saying at Bhuji, we understand, Pataila Lokanindara Karna. He's sent because Lokanindara, he's worried that people, common people, are going to do ninda, they're going to criticize him, that he's not taking care of his parents. And that's the real reason why he's come, why he sent you here. So then we spoke something about the connection between this chapter and the Gambhira Leela. And I'd like to continue with that from a very, very esoteric chapter of Caitanya-caritamrta. In many ways, I think perhaps the most esoteric chapter of the entire Caitanya-caritamrta, and we're going to come to that. But in the 14th chapter, this chapter, Swami describes, Radhikara bhave prabhu sada abhiman, se bhave apanake hoy radhagyan. He says that Mahaprabhu's emotions, Radhikara Bhava Prabhu Sada Abhiman. He had this Abhiman, this conception of Radharani's emotions, Sada, constantly. And in particular, when she met with Uddhava in the Bhramara-gita. Se Bhavi Apanaki Hoy Radhagyan, that Mahaprabhu thought, but says, directly thought that he was Srimati Radharani herself. Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport to this verse of Caitanya-caritamrta, The Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains the purport of this word abhiman, or self-conception. It's a very, very important word here. That Krishna has now come with the abhiman, or the attitude of Srimati Radharani. He says that the meaning of this word abhiman is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought himself to be in the position of the greatest mystery of Srimad Bhagavatam is how could he leave the trees and plants of Braj? And especially, how could he leave the gopis? So he's doing this to we spoke something about the 4 different types of separation.